Welcome back to the Seven Figure Leap podcast. This is another special edition. So I have Marques Ogden joining me on the podcast today. And this is an excerpt from some upcoming content from our Pod Profit Summit. I wanted to honestly whet your appetite and show you how good the content of the summit is, so that you'll definitely go to podprofitsummit.com, snag your free registration while that's open, and join us for the summit. But I also just felt like this was content that really needed to be on the Seven Figure Leap podcast directly. So Marques may be a familiar name to you. He was in the NFL for quite a while, played for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, a champion athlete in the sense of making it to the NFL and having a successful career there. But he's also then post NFL has an incredibly successful entrepreneurial career. So he's a speaker and a coach. He has a top 0.5% podcast, the Get Authentic Show, or just Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. I was honored to be a guest on there, and we formed a relationship. We talk about that as part of the podcast interview because the topic we're unpacking together is mindset and how to have a champion's mindset in your business. And I think this is something that can become a cliche, and it's something that, we get Instagram quotes and, people post on LinkedIn posts and we draw some inspiration. We're like, oh, my mindset's positive. My mindset's negative. Well, Marques really breaks down like the three actionable things you can do to affect your mindset. And right at the opening of this interview, he really defines mindset. And it's like probably the best definition of mindset I've ever heard. So as soon as we got done recording for the summit, I said, I got to have this on the podcast. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode, this session, this training with Marques Ogden, NFLer, host of the Get Authentic podcast. He's an amazing guy. I'm really honored to have him as part of the summit. And absolutely go over to the profitsummit.com and get registered over there, because it's not just Marques, it's 30 plus other amazing speakers unpacking lots of ways to grow your business and do that through podcasting. So enjoy this episode with Marques.
You're listening to the Seven Figure Leap podcast. We're here to leverage rich relationships and smart strategies to take your business to the next level. Here's your host, Dustin Riekman.
Welcome back to the Pod Profit Summit. I have a bit of a legend in the house here for our next session of the summit. So Marques Ogden, you may know the name. He's a former NFL player turned inspirational speaker, author, and entrepreneur. He's the CEO and founder of Ogden Ventures, a media and entertainment company. He does a ton of keynote speaking, podcasts, or business coaching, consulting, and he has an amazing podcast called Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. It's a top 0.5% podcast. I was recently a guest, and just one of the best experiences I've had. He's a real pro. So I was really honored to be able to have Marques here with us to talk about the inner game. A lot of what we have in the summit are strategies and tactics and tools, and all that's really important. But really, it all starts with your mindset and your inner game. And podcasting is, not for the faint of heart. So Marques has his own story around that. And so the topic here we're going to dive into is how to sustain a victory mindset, specifically to grow your podcast. So Marques, man, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you tell us your story and teach us through your example, so we can help these podcasters grow and sustain for the long term.
Love it. Thank you, Dustin. So a little bit about me. My name is Marques Ogden. I am from Washington, D.C. I live in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina. It's about half hour outside of Raleigh. I am a national, international keynote speaker, business coach, corporate consultant, 5-time best-selling author. I'm a former NFL athlete. And as Dustin said, I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marques Ogden show, which is ranked in the top 0.5% most popular podcast worldwide. Very fortunate, very blessed. People love the message, love our guest. Dustin was on, great interview, great show. We've had all types of people like Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, to Scott Page from Pink Floyd. We've had on David Archuleta, former pop star off American Idol. We've had, Brittany, and she is phenomenal. She is an actress, Brittany Bristow. We had her dad, Leif Bristow, on, who is a phenomenal producer and makes movies for Lifetime and Prime and Netflix, all that type of cool stuff. But very interestingly, around mindset. So for me, after my NFL career was over, I struggled for about 6 months heavily with alcohol addiction, nightlife, gambling, and I didn't have a strong mindset. Now, what is mindset? You're probably asking yourself. Mindset is conditioning your mind to believe what your heart knows is achievable. Okay. Again, conditioning your mind to believe what your heart knows is achievable. I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat right now. I'm going to give you 3 things you need to do to really create a mindset, especially to sustain a podcast. As Dustin said, it's not easy to get started. It's really not. But once you get into it and you get good at it, and people love your content, they love your guests, they love your energy, then it becomes, wow, I can't get enough of this. But to get there, 3 things. Number 1, focus on what you can control. Focus on what you can control. That's number 1. Number 2, all right, this is a big one. Learn to master self-hypnosis. And I learned that from my peak performance coach that I got when I went to the brain and body assessment with the NFL. And what that means is put your mind and put yourself in an atmosphere or scenery in which your eyes can see beauty. It could be forest, it could be trees, it could be river, it could be a pond, it could be, skylines. It's whatever brings you a sense of calm and a sense of peace. Because what happens is when your mind is being quote unquote hypnotized, it's allowing you to open that to being able to sustain and get through the hard times that we all know are going to come in business, especially starting a podcast. And the third, it's really important to optimize peak performance. And you do that by your diet, your sleep, your energy, and then putting yourself around people that are going to feed you positive energy. If you want to get into podcasting, work with Dustin, who can help get you onto podcasts. You want to come on a show? Come to us, right? You want to get coached in how you really just leverage, your brand? Come talk to us. Again, it's venture out and find people that are going to give positive energy. So those are 3 things. Focus on what you can control. Number 2, master self-hypnosis. And number 3, be sure to optimize peak performance.
Those are awesome, and of course it's colored through the lens of the fact that I know you and you got a jersey hanging on the wall. But what I love is this is sort of like the athlete's approach to podcasting in a sense, right? Like, hey, if you're going to do this, do it well, do it at a high level, and you really do have to, in a sense, train for it because it's a big commitment, right? And you may not be running, but you're running your mouth and you're thinking a lot, and it takes a lot of work to run a successful podcast. And so I really love all 3 of these. Marques, if it's okay with you, do you want to, I can kind of ask you a few questions about each one and we go a little bit deeper?
Sure, please. 3? Absolutely.
Yeah. So focus on what you can control. Man, this is so important. Do you want to give us an example maybe of what not to do, and then maybe some examples of what we can do? Because I can definitely think of some things I've done and over the years, huge mistakes that I've made, and many of them fall with this category of focusing on things that I can't control and getting discouraged or, losing my way or losing my optimism. So yeah, tell us more about focusing on what we can control.
So focusing on what we can control is, for example, we can't control the political environment. We can't control people spending and what they're wanting to budget for advertising on a podcast. We cannot control someone who's had a hard day and we reach out to them about coming on our show saying, no, thank you, they're not interested. We can't control that. If we focus on that, who's going to win the election? Who's going to do this? Are people going to be spending? Well, we can't focus on that because you can't control it. Live by this saying, right? What you can't control, do not have your energy flow towards it. Right? So what you can control is the type of guests that do say yes. What you can control is making sure people that you have on the show, you do a great job with the interview. Keep it engaging, keep it fun, keep it something that's unique, right? I'll give you a piece of advice. People that say yes, don't get the same type of person all the time to interview, right? One of the key successes of Joe Rogan's podcast is you never know who's coming on. Yep. That's where our success has come in, right? The mindset that we have is to open up and always be that podcast where people know positivity, authenticity, and realness. Boom, boom, boom. And when people understand that, what they say is, okay, I don't care if it's Sebastian Bach or Scott Page, or I don't care if it's Travis Payne, who was Michael Jackson's choreographer when he was alive. I don't care if it's Brittany Bristow or her dad. It doesn't matter. We know we're going to get that authenticity, that engagement, and that positivity. So again, you can control that. You can control getting the right type of equipment, a microphone, headphones, a filter popper. You can control that, right? How you schedule the interviews, when you publish your content. If you're going to do video, cutting it up and getting people to see that they can go to YouTube, or putting it out all through your platform to Apple, to Google, to Spotify. Those are things that you can control. So if you're listening to this, your mindset has to be programmed to focus your energy on what you can control around your podcast. I'm going to tell you exactly what Jack Del Rio told us when I was a 22-year-old rookie. Be your own CEO. Be your own chief executive officer. Podcasting is something that you get into because you have autonomy. 9 times out of 10, you control who comes on. You control when you publish. You control getting it out to the different platforms and the marketing and the branding. You do. Don't wait for somebody else. So have the mindset of an athlete that's going to be focused on what you know you truly want. So again, that's when it comes down to focus on what you can control. If you can't control it, don't let your energy flow towards it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's both a sort of a strategic initiative, like, if you're planning how to launch a podcast, you want to grow your podcast, and you're thinking, there's kind of some big picture things, but also like in the moment, this is such a good check. Like, am I starting to worry about something? And you're like, what's the point? I can't control that, like the economy, or how AI is going to affect things, or, what my business might look like in 5 years. Ultimately, you don't control any of that, right? You can only control what you can control right now. So having energy spill out into that definitely affects your mindset, right? Which is kind of the big picture we're going back to here.
Dustin, I could not control my old podcast co-host. I had another show, the Lev and Marques show. It was me and my co-host, Leverett Ball. And Leverett was in the sports arena as like an announcer, and he did some interviewing. And we met when I went on his show. And then we formed a partnership, and we said, okay, let's go ahead and try to do this. And then we started the Lev and Marques show. And we ended up making about $100K in sponsorships. But when we split everything 50-50, unfortunately, Leverett and I did not see eye to eye on how to run the podcast, what we should have been making, who we should have been interviewing. And I tried to make it work. And unfortunately, we could not. And I had to part ways. Ladies and gentlemen, I could not control that. I was hoping to make it work. I wanted to make it work, but it didn't work out, and I had to leave. And then what happened is my good friend, former NFL quarterback, Gus Farrat, said, Marques, you need to start your own podcast. Gus couldn't control me saying yes. It took him the fourth time, Dustin. Talk about mindset. Gus believed in me more than I believed in myself to get this going. He said, you need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do it. Marques, you got to do it. I said, fine, Gus, you're not going away. I did it. And I started the podcast and I started out, the mindset was, man, I'm going to have to start over at the beginning. But I said, you know what? One of my favorite quotes by our 19th president, I think he was our 19th president, I'm pretty sure he was every expert was once a beginner. Rutherford B. Hayes. So once I made the determination that I was going to start it, that's when I'd say, you know what? I'm just going to do it day by day. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have a great podcast, you want to be successful like Dustin or myself, fantastic. We're here to support you. But we're going to also be real with you. It's not going to happen overnight. Yep. You don't put out one episode, 2, 10, 25 and become the next big thing, right? Most podcasts need to get to about 100 episodes for consistency to show the audience that you're real. When people come to our platform on Apple or whatever, like one of our links, they say, wow, over 500 episodes published.
Yep.
This guy is the real deal, right? Yep. This guy is here to stay. And that's the mindset you have to have. You want to stand out from the competition. You got to do the work that the competition is not willing to do.
Yeah. And you got the 500 episodes by controlling the controllables, right? Like being committed, showing up, doing the work.
So Dustin, we interview Tuesdays and occasional Thursdays. We publish Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wow.
Some Saturdays if we have some special high-profile guests. That's what it is. That's how it runs. And I've got a great team out of Chicago, River Media Network. Ben Bookquist and Dennis Green are the best. Love them to death. And all we do, we show up for our recordings, we record, I work with my team, I create the podcast title, podcast description, and then when I get it to my team, they take care of putting in the description to match who's up on the show. They send it back to me. I send it over to Ben, who's my producer. Boom. And he puts it up for publishing. Bam. And I'm the one that's marketing, like Podcast Addict, Overcast, getting onto other people's podcasts. Dustin talks about all the time. Have the mindset to not just put out a great podcast, go on other great podcasts. That's the point. Cross-pollinate. Hey, go on their show. Oh, by the way, hey, I was just on your show. Hey, you were just on my show. That's how it's supposed to be. Dustin was on my show. Here I am now on this awesome summit. That's called helping each other out. We're launching the Inner Game community based off the principle of the Michelangelo effect. I was watching something that Victor sent me. The Michelangelo effect is being around people that see the best in you and help you become the best version of you based on what they see and what they know you need to stay away from. And it's how Michelangelo created and sculpted the statue of David. Yep. He was able to see what needed to be pulled away to make David this ginormous statue that became an icon in the world and especially in the art community. It's the same thing in our community. It's the same thing that Dustin is trying to do with you right here and now. Hey, put away all the outside noise. Don't listen to people saying, oh, you can't do it or you can't get it done. Yes, you can. It may take a little bit longer than you like, but you can get it done. But your mindset, great quote by Bruce Lee. Never tell your mind negative thoughts in a joking manner. Your body cannot dissimulate the difference.
How about that?
Bruce Lee.
You can see why I'm so fired up to have Marques here. We're going to keep moving. Otherwise, we'll be here for 2 hours. Well, people will love that, Marques. I know you got other places to be too. So that's awesome. Tons of insight there on focusing on what you can control. The second one, I think, is the one I'm actually the most curious about, and we probably don't have to take that long on it. But what do you mean by master self-hypnosis? Like that's a pretty intriguing statement.
So, Dustin, when I was in the apartment after I ended up moving out in November of 2022 because of my divorce, we went to the mediator, we had an agreement in place, and I then moved out. I absolutely hated that apartment to all ends. It was dirty. It was grimy. It was disgusting. It was horrific. It was bug infested. It had furniture in there from like the 1980s. I could have sworn that Freddy Krueger and Jason would be coming out of my refrigerator to chop them in little pieces. I never, ever worked there because that environment did not hypnotize me with beauty or with a sense of passion or a sense of urgency to do more and be more. And so I was always leaving to work somewhere else. I would work in my car. I would shoot ladies and gentlemen, I shot podcast interviews in my truck. I had a little Honda Pilot and I shot interviews in that Honda Pilot constantly. I would go anywhere and everywhere. And I didn't realize what I was doing until I went to the peak performance coach and she said, Marques, you were trying to hypnotize yourself to work at your best because your environment was not welcoming. Now in my home, right, Dustin, I have 8 windows on the first floor, a skylight. I love being here. I'm all about the energy, the flow, all this stuff. And so because of that, my mind hypnotizes the rest of me to put out the best version of me. So basically, it's putting yourself in an environment where you are mesmerized by the beauty, the look, the light. I mean, I'm sitting in my office, like you see my jersey. It's so awesome. I grew up a huge Barry Sanders fan. It's so fun to watch the Detroit Lions now actually come and really be something special. I just saw, Dustin, they're bringing back Teddy Bridgewater.
I saw that too.
He just won a high school championship. Now he's going to go back and be on the roster with the Lions, which is amazing, right? But the point is mastering self-hypnosis is mastering putting yourself in environments to do and be your best. That's awesome. To always live life. And again, podcasting is so funny, right, Dustin? The episodes that I put out now are better than they were a year, 2 years ago. Because a year, 2 years ago, my energy level was not the same. I was going through the divorce. I was stuck in that environment of being in the house with my ex where I didn't want to be. Moved out, hated where I was. Moving to my beautiful home, it took me a while to get adjusted. Like, honestly, I had like frat boy furniture for about 2 years. And and now I have like big boy leather furniture, nice sofa, nice love seat, things that look like an adult for myself. And because of that, right, Dustin, I'm much happier and I put out much better quality of work. So the tip for you all here is to get your mindset where you want it to be. Please put yourself in positions of happiness and whatever that is for you. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be trees or light. It doesn't have to be that for you. If that's what it is for you, great. If it's not, find it. Work within it. Because when you do that, your podcast will come out with much more passion, much more energy, and much more vigor.
I love that. Yeah. And obviously, this applies directly to the environment in which you record, as Marques was sharing with his own experience. But, maybe you can't control that right now at this stage. But what you can control is sort of how you head into an interview or how you ideate about what you want to do on your podcast. Like for me, one of my favorite things to do is just go out for long walks, sort of have a conversation with God, prayer, kind of an open-ended question, and just go in silence and walk and being out, among trees and fields and hopefully sunlight. Like that's very energizing. But maybe I'm getting on a podcast interview and I need to kind of get my mind right, get my mindset locked in. Maybe that's doing some push-ups and jumping jacks before I hop on the mic, right? Or go pet my dog or whatever's good for you. But being proactive about putting yourself in environments and resetting your mind when you feel a little frenetic or you're feeling like not really focused. Like I think that's part of this hypnosis, right?
Oh, it's huge. And here's the thing, right? And I love what he said. It's all about what works best for you. The 3 R's to help you with your mindset. If you don't like where you're at, use these 3 R's: responsibility, take responsibility, good or bad, for what's going on, and then own it. Then you have to reframe, Reframe, perspective. How we look at things is how we live our life. And then the third is relaunch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off.
Love
If you
that.
don't like something, doesn't mean you have to stay in it. Like I said, I did not like my apartment. It took me a while, but basically when I would go out and shoot a podcast, I was reframing my mind. So, okay, well, you live there, but right now you work here. And then relaunch. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. Let's try to do the best we can with the podcast. And again, it came out okay, right?
Mhm.
But now with me in this better environment, it comes out even more grand. So again, doesn't mean you can't have what you want. What it means is whatever it is that you want that works for you, put yourself in that position. But again, responsibility, reframe, relaunch.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. Well, let's get into the third key point here, which was optimize peak performance. And this is, I think, where the athlete thing really, came to bear, because the things you were starting to talk about, I'm like, this sounds a lot like getting ready for for a football game. But yeah, tell us about optimizing peak performance, especially as an entrepreneur and a podcaster.
This is all about putting yourself in the best position to give your best all day long. So like me, now when it comes to optimizing, I have made tweaks to my diet. I was already doing better, but now I'm eating carbs with protein. I'm drinking pretty much all water unless I go to a movie for a little treat for myself. Because again, I went to the brain and body assessment, right, Dustin? I was 78% muscle at 312, which is great. But I want to try to get a little bit better. And he said, Mark, you can make the tweaks here and there that'll help you optimize your performance. You have better energy. You'll have more excitement. You'll have more passion in your work because you'll have a lot higher levels of energy, right? Again, I also learned how to not eat certain things by themselves, like eating a bunch of carbohydrates, even like fruit all by itself can spike your glucose, which ends up potentially putting you into pre-diabetes. All these things I didn't even think about or even know. And because of that information I got a week ago, now I'm changing things to optimize at peak level. It comes across, my energy has gone up and up since last Wednesday. Again, I'm eating more protein. I'm eating more often. I'm eating things that I should be eating, more like pork chops, lean meats, vegetables, right? I'm staying away from things that are called the empty calories, right? I haven't had potato chips and I'm not saying I won't again. What I'm saying is I'm trying to get myself into peak performance and see how I do. And even like this, it's a Friday after Christmas, working, excited, full of passion. This is all about, because here's the thing. If you want your podcast to stand out, you have to stand out.
Love that.
Because you are the podcast. You are. When people think of Joe Rogan's podcast, what do you think of? The first thing I think of when I think of Joe Rogan's podcast is Joe Rogan MMA doing his announcing. First thing I think about, because that is Joe Rogan, right? People are going to identify the podcast with you. So your energy, your sleep is important. I didn't realize this. Your brain is a mechanism. If you get more sleep, it will get rid of useless information and store things you need later on in your long-term memory. I didn't realize that. So all that comes in, right? Who's around you?
This is the last point that I wanted to make sure we hit.
Yes.
You mentioned in the opener, like being around positive energy. So obviously there's the diet, exercise, sleep, which not everyone does know this, but like you should know that. But I think this is a more nuanced thing where people are like, I do those things, but let's talk about like being around positive energy and the effect that has on you.
That's everything. Think about it. If you're around a bunch of negative people, you will become negative because why? You don't want to stand out as the only
Yes.
positive one in a negative environment. I'm around Dustin. Dustin's been our partner, Victor. Dustin's going to be joining our inner game community. Dustin wouldn't be a part of it if he didn't think that we were high energy, good people trying to help each other. Again, when he said, man, I'm having a summit, I said, sign me up, right? I'm there to help because that's venturing out. You remember this, your vibe attracts your tribe.
I love
So
that.
you have to remember this and remember this over anything else. Win the relationship, not the job. When you win the relationship, the chance of you getting the job goes through the roof. If you lose the relationship, more times than not, you're going to lose the job. If you win the relationship, you may not win the job, but doesn't mean you won't get other jobs. If you lose the relationship, you won't get that job, the next job, the job after. Because they're like, all you wanted from me is the job.
Yep.
Win the relationship. When Dustin said, hey, man, I want you to come on a podcast, I was like, what do you need from me? Oh, I'm going to do something to this? Perfect. I'm all in. Don't worry about paying me. I don't care about that. Because you don't get rich off one job. You don't. And that's podcasting. That's
and I think
podcasting.
There's like a demonstration of this too. Hopefully you don't mind me sharing this, Marques. So Marques and I were introduced by a mutual friend, a friend of mine that was on his podcast. And, then we had an initial sort of feeling out session, I think, where he's like, who is Dustin? He's a real deal. He wasn't in Skid Row, like I don't come with the celebrity credentials. But then he and I had a chat and I feel like we were fast friends, so all of a sudden he's like, yeah, man, come on my show. And then how else can we work together? And I'm like, yeah, I got this summit. Like, you should be part of this. And we're texting each other. And I think that just is a demonstration of positive energy, right? Like, he has a really positive vibe. Obviously, he's here talking about that and demonstrating it with mindset. I think he felt the same. And we're very different people. We have different goals and ambitions. Like, we're united in this positive energy, wanting to do good for the world, have an impact. We love podcasting. We love sharing the spotlight with other people and their stories. And I think, that's just a great example of winning a relationship. We had no transaction. We weren't trying to sell each other anything, but like, we legitimately, respected each other once we got that energy connection. And that's what I felt, at least, Marques.
And you're 100% on. And then I said, hey, Dustin, come talk to my partner, Victor.
Yeah.
Love to have you in the inner game communities, one of our contributors, because you understand relationships, business building, connection, how to grow through real winning relationship type of interaction. And ladies and gentlemen, that is podcasting. Because in the beginning, especially if you're just starting out or even early on, people aren't going to really know your podcast. There's so many out there. So you need to have people like Dustin that can say, oh man, you should talk to Marques, go on Marcus's show. Or hey, talk to this person. Hey, look at who Marques had on his show. Maybe he can get you one of his past guests on your show. It's all about, again, win the relationship. So the real thing I'll tell you is mindset. Again, it is conditioning your mind to believe what your heart knows is achievable. The number one key to this business, especially podcasting, is consistency and perseverance. Yeah. That's what it is. And if you want to be the best, be consistent and persevere through the beginning. But saying, why are you starting a podcast? Or who's listening to that? And blah, blah, blah. You get through that, you'll get through anything.
Absolutely. No, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And there's so many quotables. I literally have a sticky note just full of quotes from Marques today. But that opening quote, and it's our closing quote here before we talk about how to go deeper with Marques in his community, is mindset. Because I think a lot of people are like, I don't know what mindset. It's kind of like mushy. It's like, what does that really mean? It's like, well, I love this definition. It's training your mind to believe what your heart knows it can achieve. So when you like have this idea or this inspiration, or you meet someone and you're just like, you can feel it. It's like that's what I want. That's what I want. And then if you're left to your own devices, many times, if you don't have an abundant mindset, or your mindset's not wired for this success, you'll start shutting it down and be like, I could never do that. Or these limiting beliefs, or, that was kind of a silly thing to even desire. Mindset is, training your mind to believe these things, because when you believe them, you can achieve them, right? I love that. So very simple, but as we've kind of went through here more in depth with the 3 subpoints, there's some depth to this, and it's super achievable, right? Like everything that Marques outlined, focusing on what you can control, master self-hypnosis, and optimizing your peak performance. These are not easy things, but they're well worth it, and they're definitely achievable. So, Marques, tell us, people are like, I need some more Marques Ogden in my life. This guy's awesome. Like, tell us the best next step for people that want to go deeper with you.
They can go to our website, www.marquesogden.com, MarquesOgden.com. You can go to our app. We have the Marques Ogden app. Follow us and connect with us there, or just shoot me an email, marques@marquesogden.com. If you can do one of those three things, you can connect with us very easily. We love to hear from you, and we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So check out the podcast, Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. And of course, you'll find that in the app and all the things at marquesogden.com. So Marques, you're a gift, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing so much wisdom and love with the audience so they can level up their own mindset and win big in this podcasting game.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on, Dustin. Appreciate you.